Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy, Boulanger. Let's talk. It's game day. Preseason game, but game day nonetheless. And there's a lot of storylines that are going to be told in and out of game number 2. When those 60 minutes fall off the clock, there will be some things that I believe we have an understanding of. Let's get to it. First storyline going into tonight's game will be the start of Cooper Rush, and will he establish himself as a legitimate backup to Lamar Jackson in Baltimore? Now, that may not be a big storyline to most of us, but if we really think about it, do we really trust what we've seen thus far out of Cooper Rush and the backup candidates in Baltimore? You must say not. And so when you think about the passing game from last week, which is a secondary storyline to the quarterbacking of tonight's game, 59 yards basically was the total for the quarterbacks who played all of the game last week, right? Those guys who combined for the 60 minutes last week, 59 yards. So we didn't even get a real look at what the wide receivers could do. Those guys that's going to fill that 4th, 5th, and 6th spot, we didn't get a real chance because the quarterbacking was so bad. And so those 3 storylines offensively are tied together: backup quarterbacking, wide receiver play, and who will emerge to fill those spots. We understand that Cooper Rush is going to be the backup. That seems to be cemented. But who will get a real chance to get that 6th spot on this Baltimore Ravens wide receiver group? Let's get into that. So locks, as we already understand, Tez Walker, I don't think he's competing for his spot. LaJohntay Wester, he's not competing for a spot. And then at the very top, Hopkins, Zay, and Bate. Those 5s are locks. Unless some type of freakish, unforeseen injury happens, I'll say that reluctantly. Unless that happens tonight, those 5 guys are locks. So it's the 6th spot. So who is competing? Dayton Wade versus Tylan Wallace. Now, of course, Tylan Wallace has the edge because he's a veteran. He's in his 4th season. No. He's in his 5th season in Baltimore. And so he definitely has an edge. Plus he has some kick return, punt return capability. But Dayton Wade has been a young guy who has been stunting a little bit. Last year, he jumped on the scene. This year, in practice specifically, he's done some things. And so I think he'll get a real shot tonight. I think he'll get a majority of some snaps to see what he can do, especially if the quarterbacking improves. And so when we take into consideration the backup quarterback, the wide receiver group, who's fighting for those backup spots, the other spot or the other position group offensively is the offensive line. The storyline offensively is, number 1, even more importantly than who starts at right guard, will this team get their discipline together, right? They've had a penalty issue stemming from last season. It has continued into this season. And so the question is, will this backup group tonight, which will be comprised of some starters, will they show up, handle their business, and be consistent with the snap count and execute in blocking? The storyline between Daniel Falele, or the competition between Falele and backup guard Ben Cleveland, I think is elevating at this point. I think Ben Cleveland has probably his best shot of uprooting Falele for that right guard position. Probably his best shot in his 5 seasons in Baltimore, 5 being this season, to really earn his way onto the field. Now, whether we feel good about that or not, because Ben Cleveland has been okay, but not excellent. So whether we feel good about either one of these dudes at this point, that remains to be seen. But I think this is his first opportunity to get that spot. So that's the offensive side of the ball. None of the top guys are going to play. Of course, that's smart because, we've already been riddled with a whole lot of injuries, offensively and, of course, defensively. So I think those are the storylines offensively: backup quarterback, offensive line play, who's going to crack that roster, and then who's going to grab that 6th spot at the wide receiver position. All right. When we jump to the defensive side of the ball, I think the storylines lie basically in that area of the last spots for the 53. We understand at the top of the edge rush rotation, the question for tonight, storyline for tonight, is going to be, will that young edge rushing group continue to make progress? We saw last week Mike Green showed speed, power, the ability to bend the edge. We saw he and Adisa Isaac combined for a sack. And or whether they combined for it, I know Mike Green caused it. Adisa Isaac finished it. Will these two guys, who are absolutely going to be on this roster, will these two guys continue their momentum, right? I think the bigger of the storylines for the young edge rushing group is lying with David Ojabo. He had one really good play last week. It kind of jumped off the screen, knocking the quarterback for the Colts out of the game. But the question is, because I said, and I have said, he's good for one game-changing play every 6 games. Well, let's see if he can follow that up. I think that he's probably more on this roster than not, but will he be able to put something on display tonight that solidifies that? I think tonight will be the answer to that question. I think if he shows up tonight and does some good things, I think he cracks this 53-man roster. I think right now it's 50-50 for David Ojabo. But if he puts on a nice performance tonight, I think he's going to lock himself into that final edge rushing spot. When we look at the interior, not a whole lot of questions there for me other than will Aeneas Peoples make this roster? He did some good things last week, but we want to see, can he build momentum? I don't think he's put enough in demonstration, in performance this offseason to validate himself on this roster. I don't think he's done enough to kind of push out a guy like a Brent Urban. And so I want to see what he does, right? I don't think the Baltimore Ravens are going to be able to sneak him onto the practice squad without somebody coming to get him. And so I think that he has to do something in these next 2 games to say, I'm here and I'm worth it. So that's who I'm looking for to step up, step out tonight. So those are the storylines for the trenches. The storyline for the interior linebacker position really just going to come down to the young talents. Will Jay Higgins continue to make progress? And will Teddy Buchanan continue to improve his rotation spot? Because I think that Hummel is his name. I've been calling his name wrong. I'm not so sure if he's safe. I haven't seen anything out of him, and I haven't heard anything from him this offseason that says he's a lock to be on this roster. I know that the Baltimore Ravens brought him in for a veteran presence, some special teams wisdom, but if I had to choose between a Hummel and the young guys who have more upside, I will go with the young guys. But we'll see. We'll see tonight. When we jump to the secondary, this is the biggest storyline defensively, because I think that the Baltimore Ravens are going to have to decide between whether they keep 10 or 11. We know who the locks are, but I think the guys who are trying to crack this 53-man roster are guys like Lowry, who I've mentioned before. It's going to be a guy like Armour Davis because of his flexibility. I think he has upgraded his spot. And then they signed a guy this week, Devonshire, something like that. I probably got his name wrong, forgive me. But nevertheless, these are the guys who are going to be trying to make this roster. But I think they're going to be pushed to keep 11 because of the injury situation. We've already lost 3 guys in the secondary for the whole season. And some of the guys who are still on this roster do have some injury concerns, right? They have an injury history. And so Locks, Humphrey, Wiggins, Alexander, Awuzie, Jalen Armour-Davis, and I always forget about TJ Tampa. I think we're going to see TJ Tampa tonight a whole lot. I want to see him continue to validate his draft from last season. He's definitely put some good tape on this offseason. So we want to see if he continues to do that. I think he gets a lot of run. I think Lowry gets an opportunity to speak up for himself. And then I think the guy they just brought in, who just may be a camp body, they may try to slot him on the practice squad. But I think that they're going to try and keep 11 in the secondary, which means we're probably just going to keep 4 interior linebackers. That's why I say Hummel, maybe on the outside looking in. That's 15. Between the middle of the defense and the back end of the defense. And then I think they're probably going to try and keep 10 up front, 6 edges, 4 interior linemen, or maybe 11 up front, 4 in the middle, and 11 on the back end, which takes them to 26, which means 24 offensively and 3 in the special teams. But we'll see. I think some guys will make their name known tonight. I think some guys will make the decision who they keep and who they cut. Pretty apparent. And I think we're going to know most of what this roster is after tonight. I believe that. So you guys let me know what storylines you're watching for, what players you're watching for, and we'll connect tonight or either first thing in the morning with some reaction to the game. I'm out.